it can more be patented than many people think about. If you talk to people not familiar with the patent system, they always think about patents given for landmark inventions. You are inventing a time machine, and then you certainly think about getting a patent for that time machine. However, the majority of the patents which are granted today are so-called improvement inventions. So they are improvements to existing products or methods, which many people think, well, I didn't even thought that I may get a patent on that. It looks so obvious, to make this tiny little improvement, but in the market it shows that this tiny little improvement makes a big difference. If R&D departments are working together and developing new products, they should focus on the question, what gives the competitive advantage? And once they have such a new something, whatever it is, it can be the new use of an existing product, it can be a method, it can be all kind what you can think about, then they should go to the IP department and talk to the people whether there is a possibility to protect it. And in fact, it turns out that in many cases, not all, but in many cases, there is a possibility for patent protection on very valuable inventions. You can say that there are two completely different kinds of evaluation. The first kind of evaluation is, I would call it, the scientific approach. Here you have to use the help of economists and of patent attorneys in order to do an in-depth investigation of the patent you want to value. The investigation covers aspects like validity of the patent, like possibilities to design around, the question, is it a standard essential patent or not, and things like this. And if you have these evaluations, then there are basically three different approaches existing: the so-called cost approach, the so-called market approach, and the so-called value approach. These approaches allow us to value one or two or three patents. Now, very often it is the problem that you have to value huge portfolios. And if you are doing these scientific methods, then it would be too expensive and too costly in order to do this precise analysis. For this valuation of big portfolios, there are so-called score approaches existing, which basically are offered by service providers. Also the EPO is offering such an approach, and it basically consists of an evaluation of internet databases. So you are looking to for example, the INPADOC patent database, and you are looking, for example, for the question, was an opposition filed against a patent? If an opposition is filed against a patent, you can assume that there is a higher value. If there was a nullification procedure even, then the value is even higher, so you are getting a higher score value. And there are a number of these score values there, which you put together in a formula, so that you finally end up maybe with a 1-star, 2-star, up to 5-star patent portfolio, where each patent is related to, or valued with a number of stars. This is quickly done and for a comparably low amount of money done, but of course it is not a precise scientific evaluation. It just gives you a feeling which of your patents could be more valuable and which may be less valuable. If a decision is made to license a certain product or license a certain technology, it is a long way to really reach the successful license agreement. Typically, a lot of negotiations are going on in between, and both parties have to develop exactly their strategy and what they expect from that technology transfer project. These different phases of negotiations are typically reflected by a number of different agreements which are done in the course of this negotiation. The first one is the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, where basically both parties agree not to disclose the content of the discussions to others. The second element in this course of negotiations is a typical US legal figure. It's the letter of intent. The third is also basically known from the US, however also adapted in the meantime more in Europe. It's the memorandum of understanding. And then you have also in the course potentially evaluation agreements where you are obtaining samples, for example, from the patentee of products which were developed according to the intellectual property which is to be licensed, and the interesting party, the future licensee, is investigating these samples. Now all of these contracts and all of these legal frameworks which are accompanying these various negotiation stages are very important, and they have to be considered very carefully, because otherwise, in case that the negotiations fail, a lot of problems may arise. So care has to be taken.